It's time to get your checking account to zero with free checking from PenFed. That's zero ATM fees, zero balance requirements, and zero time spent waiting for your paycheck to direct deposit because you can receive it up to 2 days early. Open your account with just $25 and see how big zero can be. Apply online today at PenFed.org/free checking. Early direct deposit eligibility may vary between pay periods and timing of payers' funding. To receive any advertised product, you must become a member of PenFed, insured by NCUA.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Bear Boat Alaska, up your DIY hunting game with one of their 37-foot adventure yachts. You and 5 of your friends can hunt, fish, set crab pots, shrimp pots, and take DIY to the next level. Bear Boat Alaska is locally owned by a Ketchikan resident who lives here year-round. Call Larry at 907-617-4542 or go to bearboatalaska.com. That's B-A-R-E boatalaska.com and tell Larry you heard about it on this podcast. Welcome back to the podcast. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving. I'm going to do a solo episode here about rut hunting here in Southeast Alaska and kind of recap my last hunt from Saturday. So it's kind of a culmination of all the things I've been really thinking about in the 10 years that I've been hunting blacktail, which really isn't a whole lot. It's kind of, you get started after a few years, and then you kind of get to that middle ground where you start to figure things out, you think, but you're not totally sure if you are having success because it's what you do the most often or because you've figured out something. And other times you think, or I think, or analyze and think that I'm just giving either the deer too much credit or I'm outthinking or overthinking things. That happens a lot. That's kind of how things go, and you have to kind of figure out what your program is and what you need to change about it. So because we sold the boat to help with the house, I've been hunting a lot more local spots, and the road system is not extensive in the Ketchikan area. So I go to high traffic areas. I go to high traffic areas, and I'm thinking about, especially as rut really starts to kick off, like that last weekend of October, the 31st is always kind of the day that I circle. Part of it, it might be a little bit early, but rut is starting to kick in and things are moving. And I really think that I like that so much just because I feel a lot of pressure on that first one. If you get one in that first week, then some of that pressure is off, because sometimes these weeks just go so fast, and all of a sudden, if there's 3 good weeks of rut, but 4 that you can hunt, if you don't get one on the first weekend, then the next weekend, things can start getting pretty tough, and then there's more traffic, and then you start thinking that everybody else has killed them during the week when you were at work, and then maybe the weather doesn't cooperate. So all of a sudden it's the second weekend of rut, and you were unsuccessful the first weekend, and now it's blowing 45 and it's raining sideways, and it's so difficult to manage that, but you can't control the weather, so got to try to control the attitude. So high traffic area, had some cameras up, saw some bucks moving during the day, and there were a couple of times where they would rebed midday. So we'd wake up early and we'd hike up a mountain, and then twice I saw bucks on the game cams after I had passed them. So we're going a couple miles past it, so it wasn't like they were 15, 20 feet behind us. But that's frustrating because you don't know, should you have stayed and sat? Or had you stayed and sat, maybe that would have prevented the deer from coming by. Maybe it was only after you passed that the deer came back. And so when you're hunting high pressure areas, it's hard to not second guess yourself. It's hard not to think that if you would have done this, then this would have happened. Or you went to hunt one spot and nothing happened, so you think, well, it's a bad spot. Well, it might not have been a bad spot. It may just have been you weren't lucky. Or maybe it was that spot was the spot, or would have been the spot had you hunted there the next weekend. So I hunted one spot 5 or 6 days at least, and was seeing no bucks in person. A couple on the game cameras, but there was a lot of sign and there were rubs, and you just knew that bucks were there, but there was, at least an assumed degree of pressure. And so I just assumed that they were getting a lot of pressure, and I was hesitant to call because I just figured that, they'd be call shy at this point. If you get called in a couple times and it's a person, you start to maybe think, okay, that's not what I thought it was. My instinct to go to this noise because I'm curious, or because a fawn's in trouble or doe's in trouble or whatever, or there might be a doe there if you're a buck. It's not that you change that instinct, but maybe deer can be educated. So I was a little bit call shy, and I started doing loops. The last 4 times I hunted this spot, I went out of my way an extra 1.5 miles so that I could approach this area to make sure I got the wind right. So I beat brush through some timber that had there was blowdown, there was brush underneath. It was just a horrible hike to get to, if we call it a square, we'll call it the northwest quadrant of this area. Went out of my way to get to that spot so that I could hunt southwest and hit these muskegs that I knew were being hit from the southeast. And went out of my way to do that, and I kept going, even though I wasn't seeing bucks. And I ended up going one day with my bow just because. And I go out of my way again, go through all that brush, take the extra couple hours. And so I'm not even really hunting until 10 o'clock. I'm out there and I'm hiking, but it's so slow to be able to make it through this area. And I'm trying to go as slow as possible. But I also want to get to this spot as quick as possible because that's the better spot. That timber is so hard to hunt unless you're on an edge. So I go through all that trouble to get to this spot, sit down, blow the call, stinking buck comes right in, ignoring the wind, comes right in, right at the same spot where I entered the muskeg, and I'm right on the edge here. And so I look to my right, and there's I used a little bit of a tree to kind of protect my outline, but then the tree ended up being right in my shot. So the thing kind of came out, looked my way, the wind swirled, probably got another whiff of me, and it just kind of kept on. I blew the call to try to stop it. It didn't stop, and it just took off. So I'm thinking that was my shot. That was my shot at a buck. I did the right thing, finally, by going through all the trouble to get to this other side to hit the wind right, to approach it from the opposite side of where most people might do it. I get my chance with a small buck, and it doesn't happen. So I think, well, that's it. But I might as well play it out. So I work my way, wind in my face, down this network of muskegs, trying to be as slow as possible, as quiet as possible. I sit on the edge of a muskeg around noon. It's about the last little spot that I'm going to hunt until I just kind of start heading home. Because it starts to get dark around 2:45, 3 o'clock, and by 4 o'clock it's totally dark. So I don't really want to. The last little bit of the climb is super, super steep, so I'd rather not do that in the dark. So I sit down on the edge of a muskeg, call, and a stinking buck comes up over the crest, just like I had kind of hoped. Calling softly, only call to about 30 to 40 yard areas. I'm not trying to wail on the thing and bring something in from a quarter mile. I'm just looking at these small little pocket muskegs, or if it's a larger muskeg, trying to call to something within this vicinity to see if something's going to stand up, move its head, or even come in. Just getting some sort of movement. So more of a soft, natural type call. And the thing came up over this little lip. It was at 60 yards, but it was a hind piece of brush, and I was just totally pinned down. I was squatting, and the thing didn't come in. I tried to draw it a little closer, but you always see these videos of people that they post about, the buck came on a string, came in at 25 yards. You see these pictures of the thing almost running the person over. And that's kind of in your brain what you hope happens when something comes to the call, and you don't think about how many times that it hangs up in the trees or brush, and you never get a chance to see it, or it comes to about 50 or 60 yards and just kind of stands there and looks at you, which is fine. It's a dead deer if you have a rifle, but this was the one stinking day that I decided to bring my bow, and of course now a second buck, and this is a nicer buck, just comes in. About 60, 65 yards, never comes clear, and just takes off. I tried to call, and I got it to stop once by just wailing on it. It was curious, but it was a hard quartering shot at about 75, and I wasn't going to take that. So it took off. So I get home, and I think that was it. you're in a pretty high traffic area that you know of. It's close to town. Best case scenario is you get a chance at a buck. And I had two and didn't even get to draw my bow. And so I thought I'd kind of wasted it. And then this last weekend went out, and pretty much it was the last 2 days of the season, weekend-wise. But actually, I hunted a couple days of Thanksgiving break. We had Wednesday through Sunday off. So
after years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I first heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them and using their service, it all made sense. There isn't one. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is that they're the first company to sell wireless service online only. They cut out the cost of retail stores and pass those sweet savings directly to you. For anyone who hates their phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. I was hesitant about having to get a new phone and a new phone number, but with Mint, you can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone and your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. Mint Mobile gives you the best rate whether you're buying for one or for a family, and at Mint, families start at 2 lines. All plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and to get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That is mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint.
Hunted Wednesday. Did some work on, or went out on Thanksgiving morning, and then did some work at the house. So anyway, Saturday went out again, ran the same, similar program. And I was just trying to get to this back pocket, and I had heard Friday, someone just wailing on a call, super, super loud. And I was a little bit scared because I was out there and the thing was, whoever it was calling into the spot that I was headed. So I had to listen to the call, see where they were or hear where they were, guess where they were, and then take a different route. And I had to kind of wait just to double check and just to make sure that they weren't moving or that I wasn't actually getting closer and that I heard them wrong. So I crossed this creek, got on the other side, and then took off. So again, that just made me think more pressure. So I got to be really smart about this. And I didn't hear any gunshots. And so I figured, well, whatever this person was trying wasn't working. And it was at the same spot. There was between the first call and the second call, it was about a half hour. So as I was working toward it, I didn't realize how close I was for that second call. And then I averted and went around to the other side of that creek. So if nothing was coming to the call, as I was hiking home, I heard that there was no gunshots. So if nothing's coming to the calls, it's probably just going to be slow, quiet, diligent. So I brought the call but didn't really intend on using it. Went out of my way again, played the wind as best I could. It kind of swirled a little bit, but it was pretty cold, but clear. And I get to the last muskeg in the series. Wind is perfect, and it's where I saw that buck the previous week, the little buck that just never really stopped. It was close enough to shoot, but I couldn't even draw. And there's just a small pocket muskeg off the main one. And my reasoning here was, well, everybody who's hunting this area, and I don't know exactly how many people are hunting this area, but I know people are hunting this area. I've seen the boot prints. They're going from this muskeg to this muskeg through the easiest transition. You can see where the flagging is. You can see where the boot prints are. You can see the game trail that people are following. It's just the easiest path through this stuff. And I think, you know what? If I'm a deer, I'm not out in the muskegs here. That's in addition to people calling and having deer come in on a rope. The second thing that you think about with muskeg hunting is walking slowly through the muskegs, and you're seeing one broadside in the muskeg, or you turn behind you and see one. And that's how I got the one 3 weeks ago. But just walking slow and steady, not using the call, and one ended up being behind me. So it was either that it was walking and I was walking, and it had stopped, waited for me to pass, and was trying to walk through, or however it happened. It was behind me to the left, not directly behind me, but back in the general direction. It had emerged from transition. So I wanted to hunt the small little pocket muskeg that was just off the main drag. So if there was a lot of rubs and there was sign and there were tracks, figured they probably were going nocturnal. My game cameras had some pictures of bucks at 2 a.m. So they were around. I thought, this is the time of season that you're not going to call them in. You might, but for my plan was not going to call them in. So you got to be quiet. You got to move slow. Use the binos and just glass the edges, glass the timber, glass all those spots. You're not looking for broadside deer standing in the muskeg. You're looking for deer in bed. You're looking for a deer that is tucked away somewhere. You're looking for an antler. And so that was tough. And I was thinking about when I was hunting Wyoming, and you're out in the prairie and there's some texture, but you think, how in the world are there any mule deer here? There's nothing for them to hide behind. But then you start looking in the shade of rocks during the summer and you think, oh, dude, that's where I would be. And then you see one. And then you see another one, and then you see another one, and then it just stands out so much more. Deer hunting up here is not like that because you can't glass the same way. So even though that was summer, you can, even during this season, you can glass and you can see, and you can let the glass do the walking for you because there's nothing to prevent you from seeing long distances. So you bring the binos, but you're only glassing 30 to 40 yards, or maybe 50 or 60 yards. But you're glassing into this really thick edge brush that's between the muskeg and the timber. So I was way back at the end of where people start to walk, like I said, and I decided to go to a little pocket muskeg off that I hadn't hunted before, hadn't really looked at, but I thought, might as well just check it out. And I stinking go down there, and what do you know? A buck stands up, and it's got the nice tall orange antlers, and so I kneel down. And it stands broadside, take a shot, and it disappears. And I think, got him. I go to the top there, there was a gentle slope through some transition, and there was a little knob before it dropped off pretty steeply, again into some timber. And it was right on top of that knob. And when he was bedded, all I could see was his head and antlers. But when he stood up, there was salal that was about to his gut, and that was about it. So I had a clear shot, and he happened to be standing broadside and was just hesitant enough. I was able to get the shot in, and he kind of bounced and rolled off that, so I was able to get him. But I thought about a half hour before that, I was pretty close to being within range, and I figured I might as well call just in case that little buck was looking to get on a doe. And so I'd called a couple times, waited a little bit, and have some little forky antlers, and I rattled a little bit, and then just had lunch and just hung out there for a little bit. And then I saw that buck. So I'm not exactly sure what happened, but I would bet that buck heard the rattle, heard the call, but it was just that time of year when it was over. They'd gone nocturnal. They'd been called to so many times. And it just stayed bedded. Maybe it didn't hear me, but I think I was close enough, and I was in the same sort of sound area that I don't think the sound would have got lost. There was no creek. There was nothing else. There was no wind in the trees to really get things off there. So what I believe in all likelihood, and what the lesson I will take from this is, yes, toward the end of the season in high-pressure areas, things can get call shy. And even if they're not, even if you are hunting during regular rut, just really looking for those transition areas and be prepared, or expect them to see them in beds, because I don't know how many times you walk past deer. You just know you have to. I had twice. I walked through snow, and then as I came back and looped after my mile or 2 mile loop, I had deer tracks in my tracks. So So they're around, they might not always come in, and, maybe it is as simple as just slowing down a little bit more, taking your 10 steps, then waiting for 3 or 4 seconds, glassing around at these areas, and just making sure that there's not something in a bed under a tree covered in Sal that's just watching you walk by. It's nice to get focused on looking at the easy stuff that's broadside in the rut, and you see the videos of that, and you see the videos of them coming to the calls just on a string, on a line. But you just think about how many bucks that you pass because just going too fast, just not glassing and being diligent. And it sounds weird to glass, bring your binos when you're doing a rut hunt in thick timber where you can only see 20, 30, 40, maybe 60 yards. But that's the difference. You look over there and you're not really sure what that is. You put the binos up and sure as heck, that is definitely a branch. That is the nicest forky 4-point branch you have ever seen in your life. But now you know for absolutely sure what it is and what it isn't. And if you point the glass over there and you see a bedded buck and it stands up, it's on. So, that's what I took from this, and that's one of the things that I've kind of learned throughout the years. One of the most important skills during rut. It's, being able to do something if they don't come to the call. Being at the mercy of the call is something that I've always felt kind of uncomfortable with. If I sit down on this muskeg and they don't come to the call, I have no chance. I just don't like that feeling. So it helps me not be discouraged as well. I do get discouraged, but it doesn't make me want to quit early. If you sit on the side of a muskeg and you call and they don't come in and that's your whole program, I think that'd be a little bit discouraging. So having a success a few times of just looking for those edges, knowing that the deer are there for sure, trusting in that, but just trusting that it's more a matter of finding them in the bed and focusing on that was something that was great, and it was a nice buck. So super excited with how it worked out. But it could have gone the other way. Who knows if I don't check that little pocket muskeg, if the lesson that I'm saying is, always bring your rifle, never bring your bow, because the days, of course, like the lesson you learn is that deer are the dumbest when you don't have a rifle. If that's what the takeaway ends up being. But it is fun hunting with a bow. And that day that I didn't get to draw on those 2 bows, I came home as happy as any of the other days, just because. Or happier, I should say, on the days that I came back with nothing, just because it's a different experience. You have to be slower and you have to be more diligent, and then it becomes not game over if it exposes itself. It's, well, now it's game on. Is he going to stop for long enough? Do I have an open shot? And you're checking the wind relentlessly too. With a rifle, sometimes you can just kind of walk and not pay too much attention to it because you have a rifle, but with a bow, everything is so much more important. And then, when they're staring and you're staring, oh gosh, is it going to come sooner? Is it going to come closer? What's going to happen here? And it's just such an enrapturing experience. And so even though I didn't get to draw on either one of those bucks, it was still pretty cool experience. And you learn from that. Obviously, you get sick of learning lessons. You want things to work out right. Now that the season's over, I have to put the bow away until spring bear season. But great season. I'm really fortunate I was able to end up with that nice buck on Saturday. So thanks for listening. As always, really appreciate if you would go and like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and then also go to Amazon. And you can check out my book, my book is A Miserable Paradise Life in Southeast Alaska. If you've already bought that, I thank you. And if you could leave a review or give it a rating, that'd be much appreciated. Same thing with the rating of this podcast, Mediocre Alaskan Podcast. Appreciate that. And I'll talk to you next time.